Ambassador Shiferaw, Ethiopia's ambassador to South Africa. Thank you very much indeed for joining us, and welcome to the program.
Thank you so much, Peter, again.
Ambassador, it's been a while since we last spoke. Perhaps you can give us an update on the situation in Tigray.
Yeah, thank you so much, Peter. As you know, it was a while since we met last time. In fact, for the listeners of the Republic of South Africa and elsewhere, it's very important to mention the terrorist TPLF is the cause for all kinds of meshes that's happening in Tigray, as well as these days also in neighboring regional states, and also a little bit extended as well. The government of Ethiopia, since the last November 2020 engagement, after 8 months, declared the unilateral humanitarian ceasefire. So as we speak, the Tigray regional state is under the control of the terrorist TPLF, to say. But it's the Tigrayan people will have their own time and processes to work on it. But as we speak, the unilateral ceasefire, the unilateral humanitarian ceasefire, they took like an opportunity to regroup themselves and also prepare for further invasion of the neighboring regional states, and also against the intent of the unilateral ceasefire. They forced the farmers to join the rebel group or the rebel intention. Therefore, as we speak, both the humanitarian as well as the people mindset and also the intention to silence the guns, it didn't work. Rather, TPLF is now moving further. This is, as we have been saying all the time, to Amara and Afar regional states. And also they started to create an alliance with other terrorist groups in the region as well as in the country. So as we speak, the whole intention of the federal government to silence the guns and also create an opportunity for farmers, as this is a plantation season, would not proceeding as it is intended, and the things are really worse in Tigray, to say.
You call them a terrorist group, but they do seem to enjoy the support of Tigrayans inside Ethiopia and far and wide. And they seem to be fighting for what they call a cause against Addis Ababa.
Peter, the reason why they are labeled terrorists is because they are fully engaged on terrorist attacks. For example, the attack that was conducted in Maikadra, and very recently also the attack in Afar regional state, a neighboring regional state, and also the attack in Amara regional state in several places that killed innocent people, including children, in a place called Agamso and Kilakoma. They created havoc on people that were sheltering themselves. And they are also creating an alliance with other terrorist institutions. So they definitely they are labeled by our parliamentarians as such. So, but on the other hand, since they are the originators, the triggers of the whole cause, as you may know very well, no opposition group can translate itself to a terrorist group to attack the National Defense Force, which is the country's flagship institution in terms of sovereignty and territorial integrity. So there is no any reason for this terrorist group to translate it at that level. If they have any issues with the Addis Ababa or with the federal government, they had all the opportunity from April 2018 to 2020. In fact, they were given also another opportunity on the end of June through the unilateral humanitarian ceasefire, but they were not there to take any of these opportunities, but they were pursuing their ego for absolute impunity as well as dominance in Ethiopian politics and economy.
After this unilateral ceasefire that you described, we then heard the Prime Minister call on all able citizens to take up arms against Tigray. Some would say, how can someone who's won a Nobel Peace Prize be calling on citizens to fight against other citizens?
Thank you so much, Peter. Again, I think the call by my Prime Minister was very much rational and to the point. Because what was happening was, by the way, we have to differentiate two important entities here. The terrorist TPLF is not equal to Tigrayans. The terrorist TPLF may have members from Tigray, which is so, but all the Tigrayans cannot be considered part and parcel of the terrorist TPLF. So we have to separate this. So when our Prime Minister was calling for such consciousness among our Ethiopians in Ethiopia as well as abroad, is basically to expose what the terrorist group is doing. The terrorist group was claiming that they wanted to have whatever right in Tigray region, but Afar regional state and Amara regional states, they are not a part of the Tigray regions. In fact, more than that, they went to destabilize further in Oromia region, Benshangul Gumuz, Gambela, and southern region as well. So when such destabilizing and terrorist institution is moving around, you have to awake everyone, everywhere, so that, when such invasion as well as such acts are happening, it's not only on one front, it's on several fronts, and everyone has to be very much aware, very much alert, and that is basically the call for.
The Tigrayans have been saying that Ethiopia, Addis Ababa, is guilty of a number of human rights violations, including things like gang rapes and looting. How would one expect a people to respond if this is how they're being treated by the federal authorities?
Yeah, Peter, this has been made very clear by my government and other different entities in the government that any kind of human rights violation in whatever form will be fully investigated and justice will be made. And in this case, even by cooperating through the AU mechanism as well as the UN human rights mechanism, which we are very much collaborating as we speak. But the problem and the challenge is that when the same is what you call claimed or complained by the terrorist group, no one is speaking. No one is speaking very seriously the Maikadra massacre, the Galekoma massacre in Afar, and the Agamsa destruction, which has taken many lives of civilians, including women and children. The same has to be reciprocated and echoed by international community. And the real danger here is to equate the terrorist group TPLF with the federal government. And people are, particularly some of the international media outlets, their ears are open when such claims and blames, which are fabricated, are coming from the terrorist group. But when they were given facts and figures from the federal government, their ears turn to be deaf. So this is what we are very much unhappy, and this is also incentivizing the terrorist group to do whatever they are willing to do and whatever the distractions they are taking, because they were not told to stop such kind of invasion and aggressions, and that's a real challenge.
So are you saying that the Ethiopian story is being misreported by the media? And if so, why would that be the case?
Absolutely, Peter. It's misreported, and also quite a number of times it's also ignored. And this kind of impartial, so-called independent type of views are so much eroded by some of these institutions. I'll give you one typical example. As we speak now, the confrontation the conflict is basically happening in close by neighboring regional states, Afar and Amara regional states, in addition to destabilizing effect on other regional states as well. But some of the international media is now reporting as if like the federal forces are in Tigray, committing some of those accusations they have been saying, which is a blatantly and absolutely a fabrication which doesn't serve any of us. I think the important point is a good number of them are beneficiaries of the terrorist group resource disbursement, and also lobbyists who are paid. And at the same time, they have even a closer link. By the way, some of those institutions, even they were found by materially supporting the terrorist group as well. So there is any reason which was happening here, but the real problem is in our global as well as continental mechanisms, such actions, such behaviors are not condemned at all. They have been taken for granted, and they have not been corrected. And in fact, to the extent some of our own continental media were even become a victim of reciprocating what these people are trying to get. There are several occasions, there are several times where these international media have to correct what they have said, because falsely reporting initially and later on, and now forced on, unfortunately, willingly or unwillingly, trying to correct what they have been said. So this is for fact there is a misinformation, a factual errors, and at the same time a sympathy to a terrorist TPLF. Peter, I will tell you one example. Whenever any of these countries, they consider a certain organization is a terrorist one, and it's a threat to their own sovereignty and to the civilians, the story is that all kinds of actions have been used against them. And any opposition, if they transform themselves as a terrorist organization and attack, leave alone their national defense force, any of their borders, I think the reaction from any legitimate nation will be more than what the Ethiopian government is doing. So I'm saying this, no one is condemning the cause of this crisis. No one is trying to address that the real cause of such humanitarian as well as human rights, as well as any kind of acquisition, including now the invasion to the neighboring regional state. And you just say concern is not enough. And you have to say it very well, very clear, very crystal clear. When the terrorist TPLF is attacking the neighboring regional states, those people still keep on saying, we have a concern, a grave concern, a serious concern, this and that. It has to clearly indicate who has the problem. People need to have a gut to say the terrorist TPLF is the cause of the problem. The terrorist TPLF is now the invader, the aggressor. The terrorist TPLF denied the unilateral ceasefire. The TPLF now still continued in additional massacres here and there. And these international media, some of them are trying to do it in a better way. But as we speak, a majority of them are basically, I think, sold out to say. Back to you, Peter.
But Ambassador, the Tigrayans will say that this conflict started when the Prime Minister sent troops into Tigray to change the government there that had been voted for by Tigrayans.
Peter, that's an absolute lie. That absolute lie. When the fake election has taken place in Tigray, and no one wanted to do that. In fact, it's their own spokesperson, the terrorist TPLF's spokesperson, who clearly indicated they launched such attack to the National Defense Force And the reason is they wanted to show their able force to Addis Ababa. In fact, also they indicated Asmara as well, including some of their neighboring regional states. And they are the ones who ignited this heinous attack, and which is in defiance of the constitutional order whenever they have done it. So it's no way the federal government can be claimed or complained as an initiator of this problem. And this has been an incentive for the terrorist group that they were not named and shamed and also condemned for what they triggered and what they also continue doing it. So there is no way the federal government can be accused at this level at this point.
What do you make of the Human Rights Watch report that says that Tigrayans in Addis Ababa now are being forcibly disappeared and are being held without evidence of crimes simply by being Tigrayans?
I think we need to think about two issues here. The first one, and very important one, is whoever is an associate or a company or in any form supporter of the terrorist group by law will be accountable. That's for sure. Whether that's coming from Tigray or whether that is coming from Oromia, whether that's coming from Afar or Amara, it doesn't matter. Anyone who has any sort of association, support in kind, in material, in information is accountable based on the anti-terrorism law of the land. Second, there is a huge propaganda machinery that is now well broadcasted by the terrorist TPLF itself and its allied media here and there, that whatever is happening is now targeting the Tigrayans as a whole, which is false and which is not the case. Tigrayans are Ethiopians. The terrorist TPLF cannot be more responsible and more accountable for the Ethiopian, the Tigray Ethiopians who are in Tigray in any form. So such fabrications and misinformation is basically to mislead the world, the rest of the world, that the government is heavy-handed in any form to Tigrayans. And as they say, that the law enforcement operation is not targeted to Tigrayans anyway. It's not at all. No way. It's targeted to the TPLF junta as we speak.
Ambassador, are you saying that Human Rights Watch is part of the propaganda and that their report is a fabrication?
From what they reported and from what I read, that is exactly what they are doing. They are not there to listen what the government was trying to let them understand and let them to listen, but they are not also willing to reciprocate the same massacres that's happening by the terrorist group. In fact, from the statements they made and from the accusations, the mechanism, even they gather their own information, is basically from those sympathizers of the terrorist group. So if you are gathering your information from the sympathizers or the members of TPLF, whether in the country or outside the country, what kind of report is one is going to produce? It's the same, and 100%, no confusion about this. They are going to say what they are saying. But the same Human Rights Watch, if they were there to counter-check, fact-check what have been said was who was targeted and for what reason, then they could have come with the proper and a reasonable report rather than accusing one side and incentivizing the other side.
Ambassador, what do you think is the way forward? Clearly, war isn't going to solve this situation because it's now 9 months, thousands of people killed, hundreds of thousands displaced. We have a humanitarian crisis on the ground. So a military approach certainly won't solve this. What do you think is the way forward?
But this is very important question. And when we think about peace and stability, which is very, very important for any kind of development, and for the countries like our own, we need peace and development from more than anything else to say. But peace and development cannot happen by the will and wish of only one side. That's now the problem in the equation. Peace and development to take place, particularly peace to prevail, both, I should say, the terrorist TPLF has been given ample time for 2 years, from 2018 to 2020, and also given adequate time through the unilateral humanitarian ceasefire as well. But on the other hand, Peter, what's happening is more and more disastrous invasion and aggression. In fact, also alliance created with other terrorist groups, which is now threatening the sovereignty and territorial integrity of our nation as a whole. So in such case, the way forward would be, in addition to a number of massacres they are committing, in the way forward would be, I think the first one would be to have what they call confidently and adequately defend the sovereignty and the territorial integrity of the nation is very, very important. So we have to make sure no threat, the current and whatever is visible threat is avoided. So Ethiopians in the country, as well as in diaspora, really need to come together to abet such kind of invasion and aggression. That's the number one to say. Number two, the international community and also the narratives need to stop the narratives that incentivize the terrorist TPLF and also its alliances so that they will behave. If the international community and some of their allied governments, if they continue to incentivize such act, they may not have any reason to stop from such kind of engagement. And I would like to say here, very important point, interference on the internal affairs of Ethiopia, also an issue which is now known to incentivize this rebel group as well. So stopping such kind of interference on the internal affairs of a nation, I'll tell you, if Africa continues destabilized by some of the opposition members translating themselves into terrorist groups, this is a threat and precedence which is coming in real terms to the continent as well. In fact, it's also a global challenge how terrorists could come out of the opposition group and start to attack a given country. So the second point is I'd like to really pronounce that the international media need to stop and then need to also equate the terrorist group with a legitimate federal government in any matters that will stop to incentivize, that will stop to materially or psychologically support such a group. My third point is, I think this current issue, which we have been discussing, is nothing to do with the Tigrayans, nothing to do with the Tigrays. It's an issue related with the terrorist TPLF group. I'll tell you why this is very important. As we speak today, if any Tigrayan in Tigray region or even anywhere else, if they are not willing and able to cooperate, they will get a serious punishment. So when people are afraid of the punishment, so the child soldiers, they are coming because of that very reason. The elderly, they are joining because of that reason. Even the humanitarian support that is coming into Tigray is discriminatorily distributed for those who support, they will be delivered, otherwise they are denied as well. So the Tigrayans, I'm sure they are very much aware of this thing, but in the given current situation, they cannot demonstrate or they cannot manifest their own demands or their own consciousness as we speak. So the general population in the region, as well as the whole country, need to differentiate these two institutions very, very carefully, and no mistake has to be done in this very regard. My final word on the way forward is that the international media and also the continental media need to be very sure on their own narratives. And whenever there are a certain issue or fact in their hands, I think they should have a liberty and courage to cross-check those facts with the government authorities as well. Otherwise, a biased, unsubstantiated facts, they will not help anyone, but on the other hand, they will contribute to the escalation of the current challenge.
Ambassador Shiferaw, thank you very, very much indeed for joining us on the program. And we certainly wish you and the people of Ethiopia a speedy resolution to some of the challenges that you're facing. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, Peter, again, for having us. Thank you so much.